Ever scroll through your social media feed and see a post, from someone you haven't thought about in a while,
Sure.
and their take on something, like their whole perspective, just kind of throws you off. It's like you're suddenly seeing your worldview in a whole new light. Makes you wonder, are we really ever exposed to different opinions, or we're all just stuck in our own little online bubbles?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it makes you think about how what we see online really shapes what we think,
Yeah.
And this whole idea, this jolt of seeing a viewpoint that throws you off, Wendy Rose Gould talks
Oh,
about that.
yeah, the articles. Right. Right.
Exactly. She uses this example of like being surprised by a Facebook post. And it kind of makes her think about how much we try to control what we see online. Like we block people, unfollow, even do those friend purges, all just to make sure our feeds are basically just our own beliefs coming back at us.
Yeah, it's so true. We're basically creating these echo chambers where everyone just agrees all the time. Is that what a reinforcement bubble is then?
Yeah, spot on. Good uses that term reinforcement bubble for this exact thing. But here's the thing. It's not just us.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, there's two parts to this whole distortion thing. First, yeah, there's the bubbles we build ourselves by choosing who to follow, what we like, all that. But then there's a deeper level, something we don't see as much. Algorithms. They create this thing called a filter bubble.
Okay, so is a filter bubble the same as a reinforcement bubble then? What's the difference?
Good question. They both kind of limit what we see, but they work differently. Think of it like this. A reinforcement bubble is you choosing to walk into a room full of people who agree with you.
Okay.
A filter bubble is more like you're walking around and someone's subtly steering you toward that same room, but you don't even realize it's happening.
Oh, sneaky.
Right.
So we're already drawn to people who see things our way, and then these algorithms just crank that up without us knowing.
Exactly. Our brains are wired to conserve energy and, taking in new information, especially stuff that challenges what we already believe, that takes a lot of brain power.
It's like our brains are saying, hold on, too much new information, need more snacks and a nap to process this.
Basically, it's so much easier to just process stuff that already fits with what we think, right? And these algorithms, they've got that whole brain energy-saving thing down to a science.
And here's the thing, it's not like those algorithms are upfront about how they work. Lisa Stroman, in one of the other articles, she says they're purposefully complicated to keep us in the dark.
Yeah, totally. They take everything they know about us, what we look at online, where we are, every share, and they create this whole personalized information universe just for us.
And of course, we love it, right? Because it's comfortable, it's familiar.
Exactly.
It's like we're watching the same movie on repeat, but it's all the stuff we already agree with.
Right, exactly. And Gould, she gives this example of looking at how Facebook labels its users for advertisers. She looked herself up, and it's kind of creepy how accurate it was, hobbies, political leanings, even stuff she hadn't actually told them.
It is a little unsettling when you put it like that. Makes you wonder if you can ever really get free from it all. But maybe before we get there, don't you think it's important to talk about what might be the biggest issue here? What happens if all we ever see is stuff we already agree with? What does that do to our ability to actually think critically and have real conversations with people who have different opinions?
That's the big question, right? And it's not just about feeling comfortable. It's more than that. These echo chambers, these filter bubbles, they can really affect us. One of the biggest things Gould talks about is how we start to think our views are way more common than they are.
Oh, totally.
Like, if everyone online agrees with us, it's easy to start thinking that everyone thinks that way, even if it's not really true.
And it's like that whole thing with the 2016 election.
Exactly.
Good talks about how so many people were shocked because what they saw online, it wasn't even close to what was really happening out in the world.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about, how these online bubbles can really mess with how we see things. And it's not just about politics either. It's everything. How we see social issues, even science, even our relationships. If everyone's always telling us we're right, we're never going to question anything, right?
And sometimes it goes even further than that. It's not just about being surprised or challenged. These filter bubbles, they can actually have real-life consequences, sometimes bad ones.
Yeah, unfortunately. A good example is that whole QAnon thing. Bastos talks about that.
Oh, right. That was a wild one.
How quickly something like that can spread online, it's kind of scary.
It is.
And the algorithms, the ones that are supposed to be neutral, they actually help spread that QAnon stuff, pushed it out there even more. And it wasn't just online either. It spilled over into the real world, right?
Totally. Like at those political rallies,
Sure.
even the Capitol riot, remember?
Mm.
It's a far cry from what everyone was saying about the internet at the beginning, how it was going to be this global village,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
connecting everyone, bringing us closer, seems like it's done the opposite.
It's true. Bassos talks about that too, the difference between the dream of a connected world and what it's actually become. He calls it online tribalism.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, these little groups all cut off from each other, sometimes even fighting. And there's actually research to back that up, like that Pew Research Center study.
Right. They found some pretty big differences in what news sources Democrats and Republicans trust. It's pretty clear how divided we've become.
It is. That study showed that Republicans, they tend to get their news from Fox News a lot more.
Right.
Democrats, they get their news from all over.
And it's not just about certain news sources either, is it?
No, it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
That same study found that no single news source is trusted by more than half of the country. That's a pretty clear sign that people just don't trust the media like they used to. It's like everyone thinks everyone else's information is messed up somehow.
So where do we go from here? If we can't even agree on what's true, how are we supposed to actually talk about the important things? Are we stuck in these echo chambers forever? So are we just stuck then? Are we doomed to be trapped in these echo chambers and filter bubbles forever?
Well, it's definitely not easy, but I wouldn't say we're doomed. Just knowing about this stuff, the tech stuff, and how we are as people, that's a good start. We're not totally powerless here.
So what can we do? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, Good, she talks about starting with what we do online ourselves. Like, we can try to diversify who we follow, even if it means seeing stuff that makes us uncomfortable. It's like exercising a muscle we haven't used in a while, you know?
Right.
That muscle being our ability to actually listen to different points of view.
Yeah, that makes sense, but it's hard, especially with these algorithms always working in the background, changing what we see. It's like we're up against something we can't even see.
It's true. Those algorithms are really powerful. Actually, Seth Abramson, in one of the articles, he talks about that.
Oh, right.
How easy it is to spread misinformation, even by just one person, if they know how to use these platforms.
Yeah.
He uses Elon Musk and Twitter as an example, like how that platform, it might have been used to help certain voices get heard more than others, maybe even changed how people voted.
That's a little scary, honestly.
Oh.
So even if we try to be careful about who we follow and all that, there's still stuff going on behind the scenes that we might not even know about.
Exactly. And it's not just the big names with the big platforms either. Even our normal everyday conversations, they can change how we see and share information. You know that study, the social costs of not sharing fake news?
Yeah.
They found something really interesting. People are more likely to share something false if they think their friends believe it too.
It's like we'd rather be wrong but liked than right and all alone.
It's true. We're social creatures, right? That need to fit in, to belong. Sometimes it's stronger than our common sense.
So where does that leave us? How do we deal with all this information overload, with algorithms and social pressure all fighting for our attention? How can we actually think for ourselves and have real conversations with people who disagree with us when it feels like we're constantly being pulled in a million directions?
Those are the questions we all need to be asking. It all starts with realizing what's going on, both inside us and out there in the digital world, and understanding that being wrong sometimes, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a chance to learn and grow. We got to be more willing to question what we think, even if it feels weird. Because in the end, talking to people who see things differently than us, even disagree with us, that's what makes us smarter, more understanding, more connected.
That's a really good point. So as we wrap up today, we'll leave you with this. How are you going to handle this crazy digital world? How will you make sure you're not just stuck in your own little echo chamber, but actually connecting with the real world with all its ups and downs and different perspectives? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.